So this is going to be an interesting episode of the show. We're starting off with technical difficulties. Um, I guess this is what we get for scheduling an all Bama show. The universe is against us already. But this is Herb, half of the Herb and Raj podcast. You may be wondering where Raj is. He will hopefully be joining us soon. But we do have a very special guest, Bama Beat, our Alabama football insider, the guy who gives us all our knowledge. How are we doing this evening, bud? You had a couple technical difficulties yourself getting in here, huh?
Oh yeah. But I figured it out. So hopefully Raj can join us here in a minute. But appreciate you having me on. I hope y'all had a good summer.
It's been good, but it's been football-less summer, so it's kind of like, how good is your summer actually going? And real quick, the Air Raid podcast says, "What's up, Mike over there? Always a good guy. Hope thanks for having him join in." So you've started some new endeavors, I guess, since last time we had you on. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, media contributor over at Tide Illustrated with the Rivals gang. So that's been enjoyable so far. A lot of great guys over there. They're putting out some good content. They've had some nice nuggets this week after the first scrimmage. Plenty of recruiting information as well. Brennan Howard over there does a great job. So I encourage anybody that's interested in all things Alabama to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard a rumor, which I believe to be true, that they were actually outside your house for a week begging you to join before you actually joined. Is that true or not true?
No way. I'm not a 5-star.
Oh, maybe. You are. Oh, Raj, did you hear that? He said he's not a 5-star.
He is Bama Beat he's actually a 6-star.
Yes.
Keep in mind, I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm just
Hey, but I appreciate you having my back, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got you. I'm back.
Maybe a 3-star.
Okay.
No, never. If you're a 3-star, you're like, oh God, what's the Oakland Raiders? Almost running back.
Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a 3-star.
That's a 3-star. First round pick still. So.
And Mac Jones.
Yes. So and there you got a roll card. Already getting questions in too. So one of those questions we're definitely going to hold until we get to that seconds. But it's definitely I like it. It's a good one. Raj, is there any truth to the rumor that you've been there the whole time and you just wanted to make a dramatic entrance?
I do want to make a dramatic entrance. I'm not going to lie about that. So I've kind of secretly been here. So to answer your question, yes, I was hoping you wouldn't bring it up. I didn't want to steal the show.
Right.
But I have a tendency to do that. So sorry about that.
Hey, Raj, you're a new dad, aren't you?
I am.
Welcome twins. Congratulations, man. I saw that on those last 2 shows. So
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Yeah, they're here. They were born on July 20th, about 9 days early, but they're healthy, fine at home. My mother-in-law has been great help. She's here right now. They're both knocked out. They just ate, so they're knocked out. So
yeah. So what are you going to get, about 3 hours?
What as far as sleep or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're Sydney and I are averaging about 3, maybe 3.5 hours of sleep a day. But hey, it just comes with the territory, man. So
yeah. Well, we were going to dive into some Alabama stuff today, but I did want to throw a small curveball and get your opinion on this, Bama. What is your opinion on the demise of the Pac-12 and how it affects college football going forward?
I think it's sad. I'm kind of a college football traditionalist, so I've always enjoyed the regionality of it. I think that's best for the game and keeping certain parts of the country interested. But it was inevitable that the kind of Power 5 structure that we've had for several years now was going to cave with how much money's in the game now. The TV networks have so much power. And I think there's a lot of, angst right now amongst teams that aren't in the SEC or the Big Ten to try to grab a spot. So I wasn't surprised by the demise. It happened a little quicker than I thought, but I'm not sure it's the best thing for the game. But I don't think there was any way to avoid it.
Yeah, I kind of share the same sentiments. I don't think it's good for the game. And again, he just touched on the regionality basis of everything. And Herb and I discuss this and joke about it all the time. It's just like if you're a kid going to USC and now you have to go to where the Big Ten or Ohio State, Michigan or whatever, just think about kids or families or whoever trying to travel for those games now. It's going to be absolutely insane trying to travel cross country to go to those games. And I'm just so familiar and used to seeing everybody on the West Coast play everybody on the West Coast, and every region has kind of like its dominant team. So now it's just like, I don't know what's gonna happen now. I don't see USC going out there and dominating Ohio State and Michigan. USC will still be able to recruit well, based on their school and everything and their history. But I don't know. It kind of stinks.
Yeah. And to touch on that, one thing that we had talked about, it's football driven, but what's going to suffer is all the other sports. Your daughter's playing volleyball or whatever, and she's got a Wednesday night match against Maryland. Like
how do you do that?
Chance of you going, what I mean, to that game if you're a USC parent. So it's like, yeah, I understand it's money driven and it's that driven, but it doesn't really make any kind of sense whatsoever. What they're doing. So.
Well, Herb, that was actually going to be my next point. Was that I think football will survive. There's so much money in it,
right.
But football pays the bills for just about every other sport. College basketball does pretty well, but it'd be interesting to see how these non-revenue sports survive with the way conference realignment's gone. I think there's going to be a tipping point at some point, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yep. And then this is Air Raid bringing that one up. The Olympic sports will suffer, yes. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, how teams like or how schools like Stanford were really sticking around with the Olympic sport, stuff like that. So, and I think they even had like little measurements where that's where they were pacing ahead of everyone else. So that's really where it was. I mean, I understand football's king, and we obviously love it on this show, but man, it's really bad. And for both of you guys, how much do you think the Pac-12 basically getting shut out of the playoffs had to do with this demise and had to do with maybe not getting a media rights deal?
I mean, I think it certainly played a role. It may not have been, the major contributing factor, but that certainly put the conference in a position where they were kind of viewed as lesser than the other conferences. I do think the college football interest out there on the West Coast is just probably not as fervent as it is in other parts of the country. Yeah. So that certainly played a role. And, it all goes back to the TV deal that ESPN offered the Pac-12 maybe about a year ago.
Right.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but, it was a pretty decent deal considering where the conference sits now, and a lot of the presidents and the Pac-12 and ADs kind of snubbed their nose at it. That in hindsight ended up being a really bad decision. So,
sorry, I'm looking at one of the comments I'll post up. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think sometimes people don't realize here in the South we only have football, so that's why it's going to be king here. Yeah, if you're in California, you probably have a million things to do. So.
And you got NBA, NFL, there's NHL, soccer. I mean, they've got a lot more options, even just in the sports world.
Yeah.
All right. We'll attack these in opposite order. He didn't think Mr. U Monday morning. Mr. U will actually be on here next week. So Big Ten guy, Michigan guy. So he'll be on here to talk. So let me go ahead and warn you, don't talk bad about Michigan on the show. So we don't want to incur his wrath.
When do we ever talk bad about Michigan?
That is true. We actually have a longtime friend in Ahoda who's a Michigan fan. So we've always talked good about Michigan. So Mr. U will not be showing up at our door to beat us up. But I don't think it was a major factor. Management was really poor for a long time. I agree with that. And I think when they changed over the Pac-12 conference, I don't think there was a sense of urgency to get a deal done. And said a few minutes ago we talked bad about Michigan. I don't think so. We didn't even bring up Michigan. We talked about
I don't think so. But just to say something bad about Michigan, a fun fact: my first ever game at AT&T Stadium was September of 2012 when Alabama beat Michigan 41-14.
Raj trying to start a fight.
I just wanted to throw that in there. Shout out to Mr. U though. Shout out to Mr. U. We appreciate you for turning in. Man.
Next week we are covering the Big Ten and the Big 12. And Air Raid Mike and Mr. U will both be on there. So Raj, play nice, okay?
Oh, sorry.
So, but no, I agree with a lot of his comments there. And this is a good one. Lincoln Riley, was he the one that caused this whole thing to fall apart?
I don't know about that. It's funny. I don't know.
It's kind of funny because there's a lot of talk that Riley was just trying to dodge,
The SEC.
The
the
SEC.
SEC, and then he ends up in the Big Ten. Probably not SEC level, but they got a pretty good conference going up there.
Right.
With that being said, is there any chance that USC contends for that Big Ten title, or is it going to take a little longer than we think?
I mean, I think we'll see. It's kind of a tough gauge because they play such a different style than most of the teams in the Big Ten. I'd say their skill level talent, or their skill position talent, is as good as anybody, except maybe Ohio State in the Big Ten. But do they have the line play and the defensive play to compete with some of those tougher teams?
Yep.
It may be kind of like A&M. When they came into the SEC, they had some pretty good years, but maybe weren't elite.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I also think that they're going to be playing the West Coast schools probably every year to help mitigate the travel a little bit. And then I think with the playoffs and the demise of the Pac-12, your goal is maybe not always just to win your division or whatever they're going to have, but just be good enough to make the playoffs and then try and make a run. So I think that's going to open up a lot more spots for them.
I wonder how the move affects recruiting too. Just hypothetically speaking, obviously this is Caleb Williams last year. So if you're a quarterback and you want to go to USC, prior to them moving, you're thinking I can go out to USC and have a really, really good chance of winning the Pac-12 and hopefully going to playoff. Now you're saying, okay, now I'm going to go play in the Big Ten. I got Ohio State, Michigan, etc.
Right. So and I don't know travel, so
a lot more travel too, especially if you're living in Cali. So I wonder if it reflects recruiting. I haven't paid attention to 24/7 Sports in a week or so. So I'm not sure if anything has really changed yet, but I think it will.
Act like you have twins at home and you've been distracted, Raj. Like I don't understand what's going on. We need more focus.
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
So.
I mean, I think it's a good point that conference championships, I think, are about to become a lot less important than they have been. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, with the SEC championship game. I mean, I know right now they've got those buys in there for conference champions and the top seeds of the 12-team playoff. But, with the conferences falling apart, I mean, I kind of see that SEC championship game becoming almost a disadvantage.
Right.
It's a extra game that you potentially have to play and risk injuries. So,
right. Like you look at like LSU last year, you probably go into that game knowing you're 100% guaranteed to make the playoffs. You're almost in a situation where like you fall behind in the first quarter and you're like, we've got other games now. That kind of. Not that anybody would just give up on a game early, but your motivations are to your point. Your motivations are definitely different. And then, like you said, like in Alabama and Tennessee, sitting back, not even making the game, are probably thinking, yeah, we're making the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because the game is a big money producer for the conference, but I'm not sure it's going to make sense in the new format and with where the conferences are going. So I think a lot of those details are going to have to be shaked out over the next few years.
All right, we're going to get into the Alabama segment. Raj, you gotta welcome Mr. U for next week. You gotta say something good.
Sorry, Mr. U. I didn't mean to throw you off right there. I was just joking around with you.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy. He's podcast every Monday morning, 8 p.m. Central. Football with Bo is usually on him, and he will be on here, Raj, for our NFL preview 3 weeks from now. It's hard to get the weeks together. So, all right, guys, we talked about other stuff enough. We have to get into the meat of the thing. So, Bama, the very first question, of course, are you tired of being asked about the quarterbacks yet? Because that's the first question.
That's the number one question
about the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there. That's where everybody starts. So, honestly, I wish I could come on here and say so-and-so has, separated from the group and they're prepping them for the opener, but I'm not sure that there's any more clarity than there was last time I was on here with you guys, I guess shortly after the 8A game.
Right.
They had their first scrimmage this past Saturday. By all indications, it sounds like Milroe probably had the best day, but I don't think it was, dominant by any means. I don't think there was a ton separating the quarterbacks. So I don't know that competition is going to end anytime soon. I know a lot of Alabama fans are eager for a resolution, but I think we've got at least a few more weeks. I'd be surprised at this point if we're not playing 2 in the first game. And
that's what I think.
That's kind of what Herb and I agreed on. I think I guess Herb and I are thinking that I think Simpson's going to start. Herb thinks Milroe will start, but with us playing Middle Tennessee that first game, I guess they'll both get their hands dirty, and the winner will come out of that game.
Okay, so technically the question to me was who was going to start, and I said Milroe and Simpson is my answer. I think they both get half.
Yeah, but it was
like, oh, the question is.
I just need one name.
So let me ask it this way then: Is Buckner a clear third at this point, or are we just kind of are we underestimating his impact?
Yeah, I don't think it's clear that he's a clear third at this point. I see a lot of people saying that. I've heard some of the guys, on Birmingham radio talking about that. And I actually heard Tyler Buckner had a really good week last week heading into the first scrimmage. Now, it sounds like the scrimmage, it was kind of, just average performance. But I don't know if I would say that first scrimmage, an average to poor first scrimmage after having a really good week of practice and having only been here for, a few months would eliminate you from the competition. So I wouldn't bet on him right now, but I don't know that he's out of it.
Okay. And here's a question from her. Oh, go ahead, Raj.
No, I wonder if Julian Sayin is just sitting around just kind of salivating at this whole scenario that we have going on, knowing that he'll be here. The 5-star, I believe he's from Carlsbad, California, will be here next year anyway, and he's supposedly supposed to be the next big thing. So
yeah, and also Bama to piggyback on that, I have said multiple times the 3-headed quarterback battle that we have going on right now. I don't know that any of those 3 will be the starter next year with what we've got already at 4 and 5 and coming in next year. What do you think about that and what Raj just said?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you just got to see how it plays out because, once a guy's a starter, if he plays fairly well, it's really hard to unseat somebody regardless of your talent. We saw it with Jalen Hurts, which obviously Hurts is a much different player now than he was when he was starting quarterback at Alabama. But, Tua probably maybe the most talented passer that's come through Alabama under Saban. Bryce Young could certainly say something about that. But, what Tua did in practices and scrimmages when he first got here, I mean, that hasn't been replicated since. And it still took him a full season to unseat Hurts. So, I mean, I think Dylan Lonergan is really talented. Eli Holstein, obviously, also talented. You mentioned Julian Sayin out of California. I mean, he's probably a Bryce to a level talent. So there's a lot of younger guys that could potentially push those older guys. But, once a guy gets experience, it's difficult to say what somebody that's younger than them can do to gain that job.
Yep. And here's a question from earlier when the comment. How will Tommy Rees' system fit at Alabama? And, piggyback on that, is Buckner the clear answer to this? Who does it benefit any of the quarterbacks more or less?
Yeah, I'm interested to see Tommy Rees's offense at Alabama because I don't think you can directly translate what he did at Notre Dame to what he's going to do at Bama. The skill position talent is just a vast difference between the two. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be exactly what he ran at Notre Dame, and I don't think it really gives a quarterback an advantage because he's come in and he's learning Nick Saban's offense. I mean, he's going to put his stamp on it. He's going to call plays within that offense how he feels comfortable, but it's not going to be his offense. So that's a learning curve for Tyler Buckner. But Buckner also has familiarity with how he calls plays, what he wants from his quarterback. So that's a disadvantage for Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe. So I don't think it really gives an inherent advantage to any of the quarterbacks.
You see who Mike's pick is, Buckner.
Tyler Buckner,
yeah. QB1, yeah. If you had to pick somebody to start game 1, who would you pick?
This is the question I posed to Herb last night.
I mean, if I had to say right now, I'd favor Jalen Milroe. And it's kind of by default. And not that he hasn't done well. I mean, he hasn't done anything to lose the job. So I'm not saying he's not having a good fall camp, but I don't necessarily know that he's separated from the other guys. But because he's the oldest, I think he's got an advantage. I mean, I think you could swap their performances. If Ty Simpson was the older guy, I'd probably be saying, Ty Simpson's going to start. So
Right.
I think
And
Jalen
who air
has an
raid
advantage because of his experience, but it's close.
Yeah. And we all know Saban likes experience too, so.
Yeah. Well, don't we all like experience though, Ron?
Yeah, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
right now, I guess it does kind of look like it is Milroe based on the fact that he was in a few games last year. So
yeah,
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I will say I'm very interested to hear the reports this Saturday from the second scrimmage. The Red Elephant Club will be in attendance, so you'll have a little bit more eyes on it than we did this past Saturday. So, we'll see if we can get a little bit more clarity and a little bit more separation.
Sounds good. Let me if we go through the position groups, and obviously we only get tidbits, but are the drops as big as what they're made out to be with the wide receivers? And then as a follow-up, how is that affecting the quarterback development?
I don't think it's a ton of drops. I think it is an issue, but I think Saban's just kind of fed up with drops in general. I think it's drops at bad moments more than it is 20, 30 drops, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity.
They asked Saban about that after the A-Day game because, they had some drops in the A-Day game, and he kind of took a positive approach to it. And I think it's continued into fall practice. And I think he's just fed up with it. So I think he's trying to challenge the guys in that room and go with a little bit more negative approach. But I don't think it's anything that other teams aren't dealing with. I don't know if you guys saw the quote from Kirby Smart, but he's talking about the same things over there. So,
with that being said, do you see anybody emerging as kind of like that number one go-to receiver right now? Or is it still too early to tell?
I don't think anybody's emerged as of yet. I did hear Jermaine Burton had a really good summer.
Okay.
I think he's had a really good camp so far. Him and Ja'Cory Brooks are kind of the elder statesmen in that room. The guys with the most experience. I think the key for both of them is just to become more consistent. We've seen flashes from both of them, but it's not on a consistent basis. I think you hope one of those younger guys can step up and become more of a factor. Isaiah Bond, he's probably had the most issues with drops in fall camp, but he's the name you hear the most. Malik Benson, I heard a lot about him during bowl prep last year, but I'm not hearing as much since then. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a factor. The buzz is just not there it was when he first got here. You've got Kobe Prentice, played a little bit last year. Again, consistency's probably the main thing you're looking for with him. Emmanuel Henderson. They got talent in the receiver room. It's all about consistency. I mean, you can't have guys flashing here and there and not being someone you can rely on every game, every play. And Kendrick Law is another one that I think has a lot of potential, maybe the most potential in that room if he can figure things out.
Mm-hmm. And that's Air Raid Mike's kind of question going along with you. How does the wide receiver group look after the 22 season where the core never really gelled and with Burton coming back? So if you had to put a letter grade on where they are right now, where would you do? And what do you think they're looking like going into the season?
Probably a B-. I'm not at every practice. That's just my feel based on what I've heard.
Okay.
I can live with a B- right now. We got one kind of like tune-up game, before Texas anyway. So I think we'll see what happens during that game.
So I guess if you're keeping with the skill groups, then maybe the strength of the team. Am I right or I'm overstating it? But the running back room, how are you feeling about them?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. That running back room stacked. I mean, when Saban's glowing about a position group, and it's got to be pretty good. I mean, I do think, obviously people are excited about the young guys, Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, two really talented guys. I think they're going to be big-time players for Alabama. But I think people are sleeping on Jason McClellan.
Definitely.
I still expect him to be Alabama's number one back. I think he's going to be their most productive back. I think people forget how talented he is.
Right. And how he finished the year last year, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Last year he's coming off that ACL injury the year before. Sometimes that takes a year, to kind of feel comfortable again. I think that was, shown in the fact that as the year went along, he got a lot better. So I think he's going to be Alabama's best back, and I'm excited to see him with, kind of being the primary ball carrier.
And with those type of injuries, I think it's also like a psychological impact as well. It's just being able to take those hits and being able to make certain cuts, certain turns, and just absorbing, certain impacts and just being able to just contain everything until you become a better running back. So, but I'm excited about Jason and the whole running back room itself, especially Justice Haynes. So, can't wait.
How do you translate that into the quarterback battle? Because we've been talking about that, several times, that we think we're going to be more of a running team this year. Is that kind of your feel as well, or as usual, am I totally wrong on everything?
I mean, I think it does play a part in how you think about what do you ultimately want to have at the quarterback position. And I think that's what the coaches are weighing with, Milroe versus Simpson versus Buckner. Milroe is extremely talented, but what's his ceiling as a passer? I think he can be a really good passer. He's probably got the most talented arm in that room, honestly. But his mechanics are a little inconsistent. His feet are inconsistent. Usually your arm's going to be inconsistent if you don't have consistent footwork. So, with Buckner and Simpson, I think maybe at this point they play the position. I don't want to say surgical, but, just a little more under control. They're going through progressions and stuff. So I think that's something the coaches are weighing. Like, do we start who we think is the best guy for us to win right now, or do we try to think about what do we want to be at the end of the season and potential? So, and I want to say I think Milroe's got the high upside. I mean, it's just the passing game struggles we've seen to this point.
Yeah.
Is that going to continue to be something that holds Alabama's offense back?
Mm-hmm. And let me ask this then: with a deep running back room, would you prefer to have a guy like Simpson out there then versus a guy like Milroe, who's just bringing another dimension to the running game, as his primary attribute then?
I think you want somebody that can distribute the ball and get the ball to playmakers as much as possible.
What I feel like that's the diplomatic answer.
It is.
But you're gonna need somebody that could do that, especially when you play teams like Tennessee that are gonna throw the ball on you and score 40, 45 points. If we can't score 45 points, we're not going to be in this
Bama's running for office here in a minute.
I'm thinking about a potential matchup with Georgia towards the end of the season, and I think you're going to have to be able to test them vertically.
Right.
And whether it's Milroe or Simpson or Buckner, whoever the guy is, they're going to have to be able to spread the ball around and not just rely on athletic ability, and making plays on their own. So that's kind of what I've got in mind as far as concerns about, Milroe starting or even Buckner. Buckner's probably more of a runner than a passer at this point. So certainly things to consider, and that's probably why the battle's as up in the air as it is right now.
All right. Your last offensive part that we haven't really covered, has the O-line progressed since last year, and how are you feeling about them moving into this year, being able to protect and getting the running game going?
So I think the O-line's the key position group for Alabama this year. I think at the end of the season, we'll look back and how the O-line did is probably going to be an indicator of how the team did as a whole. I think you got three guys you feel good about. J.C. Latham at right tackle, Tyler Booker at guard, and then Seth McLaughlin at center. I think you're still trying to figure out the left tackle spot and the other guard spot. It sounds like Terrence Ferguson maybe has a slight grip on one of those guard spots, which I think is exciting. That's a player that I was really hoping before camp started would take one of those guard spots because he's just extremely talented and he's kind of a great body type for what I think Alabama wants to do on the offensive line this year. I think he'd play well next to McLaughlin. Left tackle is probably a little bit more unsettled. You're still looking at Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett there. I think Proctor's starting to take that job, but he's going to have to continue to improve in pass protection. But, if that's the five you end up with, that's a mammoth offensive line.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you should be able to push people. And I think that's what Alabama wants to do. So I'm really excited to see how this offensive line gels.
One question regarding the O-line, and this is a late to the party type question. Tommy Brockemeyer, were you surprised that he transferred, and what was like the main reason, if anything, behind him transferring? Was it playing time? Was it injuries, or was there something else going on there?
And the fact that his brother stuck
stayed. Yeah.
I mean, what is going on there?
James is like, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah.
I mean, I think it was playing time.
Okay.
I mean, Tommy was a really highly rated recruit.
Right.
He's a really talented guy, but I think he came in a little raw. I think he fell behind some of the younger guys, for one, J.C. Latham, who was in the same class with him, but then Elijah Pritchett came in last fall and kind of passed him on the depth chart. And, even if Pritchett loses this left tackle job, I mean, I expect him to start next year. I mean, he can easily slide over to right tackle. So, Tyler Booker's been playing mostly guard at Alabama, but he can also play tackle. So I think Tommy just fell behind some of those guys and felt like it was best for him to move on.
And he and Trey Sanders are now at TCU. So, yeah.
Plus, in like JoJo Earl and somebody else too. So
I believe
like half our team to half the transfer. So the boss is checking in. What's up? He says no, Tide. He's like a baseball guy though, so you can't take what he says. He does say this though: if UGA wins SC, it's the end of Bama's dominance. I would say with Georgia winning back to back, it's already done with Bama's dominance, but that doesn't mean that Bama's out of the race. So that's kind of two different things. So I think, but I mean, what do y'all's take on it?
I mean, as long as, honestly, it's my personal opinion, as long as we have Nick Saban there and we still continue to recruit as good as we have over the past decade or so, I think we'll be all right. We're being on top. One thing about being on top is, it doesn't mean you're never going to lose. You're never going to fall down. It all counts. It's all based on, how you respond and how you bounce. But I think once we get our quarterback situation situated this year, and once we start becoming more comfortable over the season, then you'll start to see a really, really dominant Bama team. And I do think we are going to make it to the SEC championship, where obviously we'll play Georgia again. So I think Bama will be back. We just had a few years where we just kind of fell off a little bit.
I love how fell off is one national championship
fell off
appearance and one
two
loss by 4
two lost teams fell off for us,
Yeah.
but you can put it however you want to put it. For other teams or other schools, that would have been like the best year of throughout their school's history. But I think Bama will be all right this year.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you define dominant. I would say by the general definition, Alabama's dominance ended a few years ago.
Right.
That doesn't mean there's not, it's still not a high-level football program. I would argue the dynasty, still lives pending the next few seasons.
Right.
The days are gone where Alabama was winning back-to-back national championships and didn't have a ton of competition in the SEC. I think other teams have just gotten better. Obviously Saban is getting older. That plays a factor, but I'd say as far as dominance, I think that's already over, but that doesn't mean Alabama can't compete with Georgia. I actually don't think the gap that is perceived in the media at the moment is as big as people are talking.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of questions in there. We'll get into the defensive ones in a second. We'll go with those in order. This is like a good transition question before we move into that. Thoughts on the upcoming 4 super conferences? If I have to go first, I would say it's not even 4 super conferences. It's 2 conferences way out ahead and 2 conferences trying to hold on. Because if you look at it, to me, it's the SEC and the Big Ten way out ahead.
Yep.
And then the ACC,
that's falling apart.
If they hadn't signed their media rights deal to 2036, I believe, Florida State would already be gone right now.
Yeah.
And Clemson and North Carolina, I think, close behind. So I think those are ones that are holding on. And the Big 12 has grabbed a lot of teams from this chaos, but there's still a lot of them would be looking to the SEC. And I think 2 super conferences is really bad for college football. Like, I don't get – I mean, are we just going to get to a point where it's the Big Ten champ versus the SEC champ for the for the national championship?
And then
my personal opinion, I don't like any of it.
And with us going to a 12-team playoff, is it going to be 12 teams just from those 2 conferences? Of course, it depends on what the rules are for the new playoff. The 12.
It'll be 5, and then 1 ACC, and then
basically
1 Big 12. So that's what it looks like.
Well, I mean, 2 super conferences meeting for a championship. That's basically the NFL. So,
right.
Which I'm not really sure where people thought it was a good idea to make college football like the NFL.
Right.
I mean, I've always thought, college football was kind of unique and different from the NFL, and that's what, made it lovable for fans. I don't see 4 super conferences. I think 2 super conferences and maybe 1 other decent conference, solid conference. Maybe you end up with 2, but I kind of see the ACC folding once Clemson and Florida State get out.
Finagle their way out of there. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina probably is looking to get out as well. I mean, basketball kind of plays more of a role there than it does at Clemson and Florida State. So, I think the Big 12 is probably who I would favor at this point to kind of be that 3rd conference. I think they're probably in the best position. I think they've been smart since all this happened and Oklahoma and Texas kind of made their way out. They've pretty much just been trying to gobble up any solid Power 5 conference team they can. Yeah. And I think that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see how the ACC responds once Florida State and Clemson leave, because I think when you read into it, they're pretty much dead set on leaving. So
especially Florida State, they've been very
they were very vocal. Yeah,
I think they even said, "Hey, this whole rights deal, that's not going to discourage us from going."
But do we know where Florida State might actually go? If there are any hints,
you have to think SEC.
Okay.
I think their preference is the SEC, but I think there's a lot of posturing right now because I think there's a little panic with some administrators that they're not going to find a spot. So, you can read about their sources at Florida State that say the Big Ten's their preference. I don't really believe that for a minute. I think that's just trying to trigger the SEC to get off the pot and make an offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Although Air Raid Mike does say he thinks that's what they're
go
going
to the Big Ten.
Yep. Oh, and the boss also says he does know more than just baseball, so that's excuse me on that one.
Shout out to Willie.
Yep. And he does give you congrats on the birth.
It's just gonna look so weird, so weird looking at like all the teams geographically on a map like next year, because how sometimes you look at it and say all these teams in the SEC, etc. Next year it's just gonna be so scattered on the map and just I don't know, it's just terrible.
All right, let's transition into a little of the defensive side of the ball. And Air Raid.
Hey, Herb, sorry to interrupt, but I want to say I think the tight end position could be a really good group for Alabama this season.
Okay.
I think that position went from a weakness to possibly a strength really quickly. CJ Dupree, the Maryland transfer, I've heard some really good things about him. What he can do as a blocker and as a receiver, I think he's really versatile. Y'all probably get tired of me bringing him up, but Amari Niblack, I'm hearing he's –
I was waiting for that name. Just real quick, are you guys related in any way?
We're not, man, but I've heard he's really come on. Saban was talking earlier today at his press conference about how productive he was in the first scrimmage, and I think he's probably got the highest ceiling in that room.
What about Robbie? I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Robbie Oots.
Oots, yes.
Yeah. I think Robbie's going to contribute, but I think he's more of an H-back type.
Okay.
So I think he'll contribute in that manner. And I think Danny Lewis is a young tight end that's going to contribute as well, probably a really solid blocker. So Joe Cox has done a really good job developing that room, and I'm really excited to see how Tommy Rees can take advantage of those guys.
Yeah,
I'm like rooting for Niblack now because we've been talking about it since last year. Like I just want his first touchdown, and I'm like calling you like, hey,
yes, call Bama Beat. Yeah, hey, you're right about Niblack. Yeah. I think it all comes down to how often the tight ends get utilized as well too. So
yeah,
for sure.
And that's obviously a group that should be, if you're one of these quarterbacks and you're not, you're still trying to get a foothold. Tight end is like your safety valve, your your guy. So that's what you would think you'd look towards. So,
like, who was our last great tight end? Was it OJ Howard?
Yeah, but OJ Howard was like only in big moments. You didn't
The
talk
Clemson
about
game,
him really like the whole year. But when he played Clemson, he was like the Clemson destroyer.
Yeah.
Irv Smith, maybe. Very productive.
Oh, yeah.
He was too.
Okay.
So. All right, moving into the defensive side, who does have the best 40, Nick Saban or Kevin Steele?
Oh, wow.
I feel like
That's
Nick
tough.
would cheat. I feel like Nick would have somebody trip Kevin Steele in the 40.
Or Kevin would just be scared to lose and just say, just go ahead and let Nick have this one.
Kirby used to say that Saban would take all the best basketball players in the coaches' basketball league. It wasn't really a fair draft, is what Kirby used to say. So I'm sure Saban would find a way to put it to his advantage.
I would agree with that. So a good general question coming into you before we even get really deep into that. Dallas Turner being the new Will Anderson, who is the new Dallas Turner?
Well, I mean, Alabama starters are going to be Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, so I think you're hoping it's Chris Braswell. I think Keon Keeley is a guy to watch. Maybe not this season, but he could be. I guess he could be like a Dallas Turner that emerges towards the end of the season. I think he's probably the most talented of the young outside linebackers. I mean, that outside linebacker group is probably the deepest on the team, to be honest. I mean, Quandarius Robinson, Jeremiah Alexander, Keanu Coote. I mean, it's just an abundance of riches there. So I think you're hoping it's Chris Braswell because he's probably going to play the most this season. But if you're looking for a young guy to emerge by the end of the season, maybe it's Keon Keeley. He just got here over the summer, so he's probably his head spinning a little bit trying to learn the defense. But he's certainly a candidate.
What are you thinking about the line as a whole then? Starting there, just kind of going backwards. Where kind of rank them grade wise, and what are you feeling?
The defensive line?
Yes. Just got a text from somebody random too, who's like, they do want to know, how do you know all these names, and how we're like, they're very impressed by your knowledge with all this. So,
no, I appreciate that, but the defensive line, I think, is from a personnel standpoint, probably the weakest position group on the defense. And I don't think that means they're a bad position group. I just think Alabama's got a lot of talent at linebacker and defensive back.
Yeah.
I think they've got 5 or 6 guys that can contribute right now. I feel pretty good about the 3 starters, Jaheim Otis inside, and then Justin Aboigbe and Tim Smith outside. I think you're looking for a little bit more consistency from Tim Smith, but I think he's got a really high ceiling. And then there's some guys behind them. Jamarian Latham is a guy I've heard good things about so far in camp. And, they've got a young freshman, James Smith. He was a 5-star out of Carver Montgomery that I think is someone you're certainly hoping can contribute by the end of the season. I think the key for them there is building depth because I think, you want to be able to rotate as much as possible and have a bunch of guys that can contribute to keep guys fresh. It kind of reminds me of defensive lines when Saban first got here. The first 4 or 5 years Saban was here when, we had good defensive lines, but maybe we didn't have dominant guys like, Quinnen Williams. We had a lot of kind of lunch pail guys, back then.
Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, Lorenzo Washington, Jeffrey Pagan, guys like that. They're solid players, but maybe not superstars.
I agree. Well, by the way, Willie says he did have a couple other reload questions that we will post up there later, but appreciate you dropping in, boss man.
Thank you, Willie. Appreciate you.
You kind of already talked about the linebacker. Right, unless you had a comment on there, we'll go into the
no.
secondary, which I think everybody's really excited about. So is that excitement warranted? You did kind of touch on it right there, but the secondary looks really good for Alabama coming in this year.
Yeah, I think this is the deepest secondary Alabama's had in several years. I think the staff was really smart to add those transfers in the spring. Jalen Key from UAB and Trey Amos from Louisiana. Not necessarily that they're going to be starters. I mean, they very well could be starters, but I think it just gives Alabama so much more versatility in the secondary.
Right.
And I think that's what they're trying to figure out at this point. What is the best combination back there? I kind of feel like when it's all said and done, you're looking at Kool-Aid and probably Terrion Arnold as the boundary corners. Maybe potentially it's Trey Amos, and then it's just a matter of figuring out who's the safety that's next going to play next to Caleb Downs.
Right.
Who's your dime guy? Who's your money guy in dime? Who's your nickel? Malachi Moore is certainly going to factor in at one of those spots. He's going to play a ton this year. Now, Alabama doesn't spend a lot of time in its base defense anymore. They're in nickel most of the time. So he'll be on the field a lot. Devontae Smith, for non-Alabama fans, that's probably really confusing. Yes, there is another Devontae Smith.
Don't understand it at all, like what was going on with the naming of this kid.
And yes, they also call him Smitty, so it's going to be very confusing for non-Alabama fans this fall. But he's a guy who's emerged in camp. Kind of surprised me, to be honest, because I hadn't heard much about him up to that point. Christian Story's back there. They just got a ton of different combinations they can work with, and I think they're trying to still figure out what's going to be the best one.
Right. Is Malachi Moore back?
I hope so. He came on as a freshman, and you felt like, man, we've got maybe not quite Minka level, but we've got like a Minka Jr. maybe, and it just fell off a little bit in the next few seasons, but. I think for the defense as a whole, I'm excited to see what Kevin Steele's impact is. Probably more than personnel or anything. I just want to see, how does this defense play under them? Are they more disciplined? Do they tackle better? Is there that fire that we saw, under Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart? And, it may sound like you're oversimplifying things, but defense mentality plays such a part in it. And I think Kevin Steele can bring some of that.
I would agree. I love that hire, by the way. I feel like it's going to be much more difficult. Physical this year. All right, we're kind of getting towards the end, unless you had a different comment on that, Raj. I did want to go through the schedule. Obviously, it's a Bama broadcast. We're just going to pick us to win every game. So what we're going to do is go through the games, and on a scale of 1 to 10 to give us a difficulty rating, obviously 10 being, it's a tough one, watch out, versus 0, we've got this in the bag, don't worry about it. Okay. Obviously, starting off the year, Middle Tennessee, I'm hoping this is a 0 rating game for you both.
Yeah. For me, this is going to be a 0, unless there's something that I'm missing here. Like I said, I think we'll see two – Milroe and Simpson at quarterback during that game, but I don't think Middle Tennessee is going to give us any problems.
Yeah, I'll give a little twist on it and say 1, because I think, and it's not because I think Alabama is at any risk of losing that game, but I think it's important to figure out the quarterback situation during that game, and I think the more stability you can have after that game going into the Texas game, the better. The more things are up in the air, the more uneasy I get about that Texas game.
Yep. Which leads into that. Where is Texas a full blown 10 on the scale?
I'm going to say 8.
That's what I was going for. I was leaning towards 7, 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if Alabama was catching Texas later in the year, I wouldn't be as concerned about it. I think Texas is going to be a good team. Probably some question marks on the defensive side of the ball, but you've got experience at quarterback, talented, skilled players, especially at receiver. So I think they're going to be able to put up some points. So Alabama's quarterback situation, and really Alabama's passing game as a whole, I don't think it's just the quarterbacks. I think it's the wide receivers. I think it's the pass blocking, because if you're looking at the O-line, pass blocking is probably more of a concern than run blocking. I think all that and the ability to put up points against a Texas team that's, may put up, some points on a defense that's still trying to find its footing under Kevin Steele.
We hope so, Mike. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking Texas might give us maybe 20 to 25 points, somewhere in that range, and I'm assuming we could do more than that. So, and I think our defense is going to be big enough, not necessarily to shut down Quinn Ewers, but to kind of contain him a little bit. So I think I think we'll be all right there. The big question is, are we going to injure another one of their quarterbacks like we did the last 2 times we played them? So we'll see what happens
Raj,
there. I'm not saying I want that to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing it out there.
Out South Florida, which is a weird travel game for Alabama.
I guess a 1.5, maybe a 2. I'll lean towards a 2. I'll give it to South Florida.
I'll say 3. I don't think South Florida is going to be very good, but that's kind of a trap game coming the week after that Texas game. You know, like I said, I don't think South Florida was terrible last year. They really shouldn't challenge Alabama at all. But
yeah,
it's going to be hot down there. You're going to be coming off that Texas game. You know, who knows?
Then you come home for Ole Miss. Ole Miss, the only team in the country has to go to Alabama and to Georgia. Catching them earlier in the year than last year. I feel like this is a game that we could dominate, but leave it to you 2 experts.
I'm gonna go with a 4.5 on this one. I think this game is going to be a combination of our defense playing well and then Lane Kiffin just making some really, really asinine calls throughout the game.
Right.
He's known to do it. He likes going for it even when the ball is deep in his territory. So he'll help us out a little bit. But overall, I think, and by this point, by the 23rd of September, we should have our quarterback stable and somewhat even more comfortable as far as the starting position is concerned. So I'll give it a 4.5.
So I'll go 5. I'm going to go right down the middle because I don't know what Ole Miss is going to be this year. I'm actually interested to see how good they are. You know, Kiffin's an X factor. They rely on the transfer portal a lot. It's probably good to catch them early in the year when they're not quite, as gelled as they will be later in the season.
And they got one of the better running backs in the country. I forgot about that. Jenkins. Herb? Bama, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Yeah.
I lost Herb though.
I did too. But yeah, I forgot Ole Miss has forgot his first name, Q Jenkins as well. So he ran on us last year. He had a pretty good game. So
yeah,
4.5, 5 is.
He's a homegrown Alabama
country boy.
So Pike Road. That's a tough loss to let him get out of the state. But he's kind of an under the radar guy. But I can't believe Alabama and Auburn let him get out of the state. Yeah. So it's a good find by Kiffin.
Yeah. So after that, obviously we Herb, can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Yeah, sorry.
I was with y'all. No, it was my mic moving it back. It didn't like it, so it said I'm just going to cut off on you real quick. So, and let me give a shout out to my boy Rex. Rex, really good guy out there. He's got his own. I don't know if he does a podcast, Mr. 100, but this man always drops some good knowledge. So that's a good person.
Rex, we're going to need you to put a shirt on, buddy. Hey,
that's how he gets the ladies, man. So you got, don't hurt on, don't down Rex for that though. Always, he's a good guy, man. Good guy to follow too as well.
After the Ole Miss game, looks like we traveled to
Mississippi State,
Starkville. Yeah. So, what are you guys thinking about this one?
I think it's going to be a rough year for Mississippi State. I feel bad for them, especially with the passing of Coach Leach. But I think it's going to be that's not the game I'm looking at. For anything. Trap game before going to Texas A&M is really the only thing for me. But
so I'll go 4,
right?
Maybe 3.5. I actually think if Mike Leach and man, what a loss that was for the conference.
Agreed.
And for just society in general.
Yeah.
So certainly saddened by that news that we got, earlier this year. But I think if Mike Leach was still the coach, they'd probably be a sneaky pick in the SEC West because they have a lot of returning production. But, the transition under Arnett, he's going to run an offense that's different from what Leach runs and what those players are used to running. So they'd probably be my pick to finish last in the West.
Unfortunately,
Starkville's not the easiest place to play, but that's one of the games on Alabama's schedule I feel pretty good about.
Yep. On Raj, this is a Fashion Nova for a wedding. So
okay.
You have to.
All right, Rex, you're good, Rex. You're good.
At Texas A&M.
Speaking of this A&M game, is like if Jimbo has a bad year, could this possibly be his last year? I know they gave him a boatload of money.
Have we gotten down to where the buyout is a little more manageable? But I don't think with Texas A&M having a bad year and everything changing next year, like that's not what you want to ride out. So I would think if he has a bad year, they kind of reset things coming into the next year. But go ahead. What do you think, Bama?
9. I expect A&M to be better. If they're not better, like you just said, I think Jimbo's going to be, in trouble.
Right.
I'm interested to see how the Bobby Petrino experiment works out. Does Jimbo really give him full control of the offense? But that team's just too talented. They finally got some stability at quarterback, potentially with Connor Weigman. Very talented guy. He was a highly rated recruit. He played well at the end of last year. So I expect that to be a tough game, tough environment. We saw Alabama lose that exact game 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most concerning game on the schedule for me, being the toughest road game.
And let's not forget, they came that close to beating us last year.
Yeah.
I know Milroe started that game, but that was a really close. Came down to the wire last year. So this could be an interesting one.
Hey, real quick, just here to piggyback on what you guys said, he agrees with the Leach thing. A lot of returning players in his mind, upset city. Definitely, unfortunately, passed. We were definitely worse off for not having him here. We're starting to get close to an hour. Although, I guess we don't have to start exactly an hour. But we've got Arkansas and Tennessee at home back to back before a bye. Where are you guys ranking those two at?
I would say Arkansas is 6 and Tennessee more of an 8 or 9, to be honest with you, because Tennessee has the formula. They're riding high off the momentum of last year's win. They know what they're going to do. We all know they're going to throw the ball out and try to play, air raid with us. So that Tennessee game is going to be tough. Luckily, we got them at home, so that's going to be good. And obviously with Arkansas, you got KJ Jefferson coming back. Pretty physical quarterback, got a good arm, tough guy. That could always be an interesting game, but I'm more worried about Tennessee.
Yeah, I'd have Arkansas at a 6, Tennessee probably 7.5, 8. Arkansas is dangerous. KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, the way they play under Sam Pittman, just very physical. And then Tennessee, I'm not sure how I feel about Tennessee. I think they're going to be good. I don't know if they'll be as good as last season.
Mm-hmm.
I think Joe Milton is kind of a wild card. I know everybody's really sold on him because he's super talented, and he definitely is. He's got a high ceiling, but he's been pegged to be the starter twice before this, and it didn't work out. He lost his job at Michigan, and he lost his job at Tennessee to Hendon Hooker. So it's just a matter of can he kind of be what they need at the quarterback position. But it's certainly going to be a tough game because Heupel's scheme is going to give Alabama's defense problems regardless.
Yep. All right, and then the game that we're all hoping, I guess, is for the West after the bye at home against LSU.
I'll go with an 8. Jaden Daniels is coming back. I really hate the fact – I'm still salty with the fact that we lost this game last year.
Yeah.
I think
especially with the way it started out,
Yeah. And we played extremely sloppy. But with that being said, I don't think we're going to play as sloppy as we did last year. We're
smacking Tennessee this year. I'm calling it.
So. Gotcha.
We definitely hope you're right on that one.
I'm going to give LSU an 8 because I could see that going either way.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 as well. Certainly expect them to be Alabama's primary competitor in the SEC West. They've got a lot of returning production, and I was actually surprised that the SEC media writers picked Alabama to win the SEC West instead of LSU. I think LSU, it's going to be interesting because they had a lot of close games last year that went their way more than the norm. So. I think
to the mean.
Yeah. Does it regress back to the mean? And because I think their record was a little better than their team was last year. So I'll be interested to see if they can kind of continue that hot streak in close games this season.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with Rex. We had no reason to lose that game. Should have started off better. Should have just made better adjustments in
the way we lost it in overtime too was just
everything was wrong with that one. All right, let's get the trifecta to close out. At Kentucky, probably not as good as last year versus Chattanooga, and that at Auburn, which is always kind of a trip up game. But the general consensus is Alabama should win all 3 of those games to win out to end the year. Correct?
Yeah.
So I actually think this is a really tricky stretch of the schedule. I think Kentucky on the road, they're a really fundamentally sound team. Devin Leary, the transfer quarterback coming in from NC State, he's probably a better quarterback than Will Levis. He's probably not going to be talked about as much because he's not going to have the NFL draft standing that Levis did. But, I think that's potentially a dangerous game. And I'll be watching Auburn closely over the course of the season.
Yeah.
I think Hugh Freeze is obviously a huge upgrade over Brian Harsin. I think he's a really good coach. I think they're a team that could get better, kind of like Ole Miss last year, because they're relying on a lot of transfer.
Yeah.
They get better as the season goes along. We've seen how Alabama plays down there. Not very well at all. That team 2 years ago that had TJ Finley quarterback and had no business competing with Alabama.
Exactly.
And still went to like 4 overtimes.
So I'm really, by the time we get to that point in the season, maybe some Alabama fans will be counting their chickens, but I'm going to be very cautious because I think those are two tricky road games.
Yeah. Yep. If you could switch things up, I'd play Auburn first and play Middle Tennessee last if there was any way that I could work with the schedule.
But there's no doubt. I mean, catching Auburn at the end of the year, they're kind of a team that tends to get hot. So we could somehow move that game to the first half of the season and probably work out better for us.
1,000%. And this is a good one to kind of end this segment on. Best realistic overall record and worst. I'm going to go first just because I haven't chimed the most. I think the worst is losing 4 games. Texas, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and LSU. And Auburn is like, oh, please don't lose that to make it terrible. Yeah. My best is I feel like Alabama loses 1 game still just somehow and still makes the SEC championship game.
I was going to say that too. 11-1 still play Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
So I think the worst is 9-3. I know there's probably 4 losses on the schedule if you really break it down, but I don't see Alabama losing 4 games.
Yeah.
I think best, this team's certainly capable going undefeated. I think you'll probably settle somewhere in between there. 11-1, 10-2. I'll stick with 11-1 since that's what I said at the end of last season.
Yeah.
But I think this team could go 10-2, and you could beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and I think that would probably get you in the playoffs. I mean, it depends on what happens with other teams, but I could see 2 losses with a win over Georgia getting you in. So
Auburn was close to doing that. 3-4 years, something like that. So I definitely see that.
If this team can somehow go 12-0, then you pretty much head into that SEC championship game. That's kind of just an exhibition game because if you go 12-0 with this schedule, there's no way Alabama gets left out of the playoffs.
Win or lose, you're going to the playoffs. Yeah,
right. All right, and then we get a roll call. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, Karina. Yep. And I think I caught everything. There you go. So appreciate all the comments. If I missed any, I definitely apologize. But like I said, thank you for that last comment. Appreciate it. All the way from California, Raj. So maybe I do have a couple fans out there, Raj, that are like me better than you.
Wow. late jab.
3 questions of death, real quick. Am I rolling with them, Raj, or did you still have one that you want to ask?
I've got you go 1. You get 2. I'll get 1.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Bama, I asked you this a version of this before with Alabama from the 3-yard line to win the game. Is that correct? Did I give you the one from the 27-yard line?
I don't recall that one.
Okay, so here we go. Alabama's down 5 on their own 27-yard line. Okay. 2:37 left in the game. 2 minutes, 37 seconds left in the game, 1 timeout. Okay. We did this scenario from the 5 where you only had 1 play left, but now you've got a drive to make. So now Nick Saban era players, I need a quarterback, 2 wide receivers, a running back, and I'll even give you a swing player that you can throw in there if you want another tight end, another running back, or a 3rd wide receiver, however you want to play it.
All right, quarterback, I'll go Bryce Young.
Which was also your 5-yard line or your 3-yard line guy.
Yeah, Mac Jones is certainly in contention there, but I've seen Bryce Young under pressure. We know that he can lead a drive. We saw it against Texas, saw it against Auburn, obviously 2 years ago. So he'd be my quarterback, running back, probably Najee Harris. What he gives you in the receiving game.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he can do it all. He's good in short yardage as well.
Yep.
Wide receiver, Devontae Smith, just so reliable. In my opinion, the best wide receiver of the Nick Saban era at Alabama. And then the other wide receiver, I'm probably going Julio Jones.
Yep.
Just to give you a physical presence and size at wide receiver. It's hard to pass on some other guys. Amari Cooper certainly consideration there, but I definitely go Julio. Man, I get a utility player.
Which I don't even know if that person will come into play. He might just bring everybody water. But
is it Waddle?
And by the way,
Yeah,
Rex,
Waddle's tempting. I'm going to shake it up just to kind of pull someone out of maybe some other folks aren't thinking about. I'm going to go Kenyon Drake.
Raj's guy.
That's my guy.
Because of the versatility he can give you, you know, he can carry the ball, he can catch the ball, he's got that elite speed. So I'll go with Kenyon.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I got to clear this up. That was a Canadian flag. My bad on this one. Yes, one of our biggest followers, Raj, and I totally screwed that up by saying California. Yes, Canada. Sorry, but friend of the program for a long time, so I apologize on that one. That was just me being stupid. So yeah. No, I like the answers.
Yeah,
that one for sure. I thought he was going to say Black though by throwing that last one in. I thought that was going to be your swing person.
Maybe next year. Let's give him a year. We'll see what happens.
Man, if Black if he doesn't deliver this year, man, I'm gonna have some egg on my face.
Yeah.
And Rex likes yours are Drizzy in there. Yeah. Yep. So, okay, Rod, go ahead with yours.
All right, I actually have two questions, but I'm gonna ask one of these, and if we have time, I'll throw in the other one.
Okay.
If you had to compare the Alabama football program to a popular fast food chain, what chain would it be and why?
I'll go Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
Consistent, high quality. I don't know if y'all like Chick-fil-A, but you know what you're gonna get. I guess last year was probably maybe a year that we didn't get what we expected.
Yeah, we were more like McDonald's kind of last year.
Yeah,
so.
but I'd say over the course of 16 years, 17 years, whatever it's been now with Saban, I'd say that's a good comparison.
My pleasure.
Raj.
I'm sorry, I had to say it.
Let's see. What do I want to give him for the other one? What would you rather be out of these four categories, okay? Or have to do? An Auburn fan for a year, a Tennessee fan for a year, a Vandy fan for a year, or babysit 3 sets of twins, like Raj times 3, for an entire month just by yourself.
Oh, you don't want to do that, trust me.
So I'll go Vandy fan.
Oh,
because of your expectations, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no way I'm being an Auburn or Tennessee fan, at least with Vandy. If I'm a Vandy fan, a true Vandy fan, then I probably don't have too high expectations for the football team or really any sports. I guess they're good at baseball. So I think that'd be the most endurable.
That makes sense. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So, yeah. Okay.
All right, Raj, you got the final one and we're getting out of here?
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, who do you think is like under the Nick Saban era, who do you think is like the most underrated or just not talked about quarterback in the Nick Saban era? Or one name that people just kind of just don't mention as much as they do the other ones?
Jake Coker.
That was the one that was coming to mind.
It's easy for me, man.
Yeah.
That guy put it on the line for Bama. I mean, if you look at his stat lines and the way he played the last 4 or 5 games of the season against high-level competition.
Yep.
I mean, he kept us in that national title versus Clemson.
Yep.
I mean, super underrated. I think he's easily the most underrated quarterback of the Saban era.
Got a heck of an arm, and he's huge.
Extremely talented.
Yep. Oh, by the way, this was Rex. Rex did give you an answer to your question. Tua, Najee. I'm a huge Najee fan. As a wide receiver guy, I love him as a running back. So, O.J. Howard is your tight end. Coop and Smith. I don't think you can go wrong with that.
Yeah, Jake Coker
Rex is coming out there. Coker was a dog, so appreciate that. And what was the last one? Oh, we have to give Air Raid his props. Beat Bama 24 Boomer Sooner. So we're definitely going to try and do a collaboration for that game. So. Bama, we always appreciate you.
We appreciate
coming on. Tell everybody where to find you and what you're up to now. I know we said at the beginning, but let's go ahead and throw it back out.
Yeah, you can follow me at Bama Beat on Twitter. Certainly going to be getting more active as the season approaches. Really excited about this season. Also media contributor for Tide Illustrated. A lot of recruiting and team info over there. So I encourage you to check that out. And just really super excited to get the season started. So many unknowns with this team. I think that makes it almost more exciting. I urge people to be patient with this team. It's not going to be a finished product out the gate. You just, hope they develop as the season goes along, and hope you're a lot better in the last game than you were in the first game.
Yep. And Alabama fans are known for their patience, so I don't see any worries going
Right.
into the season.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yep. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate all the comments, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, commenting. Next week, we are breaking down the Big Ten and the Big 12.
Yeah.
And Air Raid Mike will be on here, and Mr. U from They Call Me Mr. U fame. Guys, appreciate you. As always, we overcame technical difficulties to get the show done. So, man, you guys are both A+ in my book. So
are you, Herb. You're good to go.
I really just ride your guys' coattails, to be honest. You guys make it easy for me, so I appreciate it. So for Bama, for Raj, this is Herb and Raj podcast. Appreciate you guys for listening. Mm-hmm. Whether you're listening live or if you're listening to the rebroadcast, we will catch you next week, 7:00 live. And as always, roll tide.
Roll tide.
Thanks, guys.